I was kind of looking around at the spare parts that I had, and I think I have enough to build a rig from the ground up. So um, I wanted to build the first rig that I'll have that has four-wheel proportional steering. We just had Christmas, and my brother was asking me um, about some of these rigs, and he was asking, if Axial was the only platform I had, and it is. But then, most of these rigs aren't actually SCX24s. They're just rigs I built from the ground up, from this part and that part, and usually built for the SCX24, but they actually didn't start out as anything. There are a few that did. I thought that I'd also do a combined video of how to build one of these 24th scale rigs, what parts you need. I won't go into the hardware. Most of it's like 1.4. The shaft diameter is 1.4. The primary bit that I'm always using is this one says H1.3, but I do use, what is this, 1.5? Yep, H1.5. So, besides that, I'm not going to go into any hardware. Essentially, this will be just kind of the basic parts that you'll need, and briefly how to put them on, but I won't go into extreme detail on that. So the first part that you need is a frame or frame rails. This is a stock JLU frame, and this is for an SCX24. So if you're building on like a donor rig, or you have one of these laying around, it'll usually have like shock mounting points, and like a skid plate / motor mount tray, and then rear shock points, and probably some bumpers or something like that. Otherwise, you'll have to go buy some shock mounting points, shock towers. If you're using like an aftermarket frame rails or chassis, a lot of times they're just built right into the frame, like this one is. It's got your shock towers back here with multiple mounting holes. I have cut off the front points that you would actually use to mount a bumper to. So this is, I think, the chassis that I'm going to use. So the first thing that I always put in is the skid plate or the motor mount, which your transmission and motor need something to sit on. And aftermarket frames don't usually come with one of those, so you gotta go buy one. The stock ones actually do. When I picked up this one, it actually came with one. This one, on the other hand, doesn't. They will come with other things like trays. They have the shock towers built in. They have like bracing, these like bracing bars. It depends on what chassis you get. I forget who makes this one. It's kind of a cool frame. The back, you can actually reposition this to kind of be out here, so you can have a longer frame if you're doing it, which moves your shock towers. So it really depends on how you kind of want your shocks angled, if you want it like angled back or just straight vertical. So let's get the show on the road. I have an Injora reversible skid plate here. So it's built to where you can put your motor in forward facing or rear facing. The skid plate itself, this is probably my favorite one to get, because you have the choice of mounting forward or reverse. The skid plate itself is not reversible. You have to mount it a particular way, otherwise you'll have two holes that will not line up. So if you look at this tray, you'll see that it has a straight bar, but then this edge is curved up. So that's usually going to face towards the front of the vehicle. So like if we used this stock frame, that curved part would line up with this hole right here, which is kind of set up farther than the rest of them. So that's something to keep in mind. If your holes aren't lining up, try flipping this around. Most of the parts that you'll get will probably come with hardware, and I really don't buy extra I don't buy cases of screws, just because most of the stuff that I get comes with enough screws, leftover hardware, that I end up with a gigantic bag of stuff. So That's always nice. Injora, I think, is probably the best one about sending you a bunch of extra stuff. Okay, so that's it. 2 screws on each side. That's the skid plate motor mount slash skid plate slash motor mount. So this is what your links are going to attach to. So the next thing you need to put on is links. For this one, I want to use Gladiator links. I believe the Gladiator wheelbase is like 153 millimeters, and the JLU is 133. It's like really close to that. So I'm just going to do a longer wheelbase because I'm doing 4-wheel steering, so I don't really care about the longer wheelbase kind of making it more difficult to turn and get around in tight spots because I'll have 4-wheel steering. On the rear, your longer links will go on the rear, shorter links will go on the front. We got 4 for the rear and 4 for the front. Those 2 links are on. They go in the outer slots, and then the next 2 will go in the inner slots. This happens to be a high clearance suspension link set, so that's why the links are bent at the ends. It's kind of how they go on the front, and then we'll do the rear. Okay, so all the links are on. Since we're doing 4-wheel steering, I'm using Mias isokinetic axles, and these are probably currently my favorite axles. It's such an amazing difference between the turning radius for a set of these versus a stock axle. I do have a set of LGRP Super 8s that I'm going to put on a build. I actually got them for this brass build I was working on. Actually, that's that rig right there, which I have a video of that coming. Basically, I'm just putting together one of these that is made completely out of brass parts. So I'll actually show you that real quick. So this is, I have another video coming on this, on building this, but check that out. Everything, pretty much everything is made out of brass. So if they make a part in brass, it's going on. But that's for another build. So for this one, we're going to be using 2 of these Mias isokinetic axles, and the turning radius on this is amazing. So these require you to put on the, they're already put together. They just need the front steering linkage put together, and these come with a servo mount, so that's pretty cool. It's adjustable. So let's put the hardware back here. So after those links, I still had like 5 screws left over. We'll put together the servo mount first. So basically it comes with these 2 tabs, and that's another part you'll need if your axle doesn't come with a servo mount. You'll need to find one, pick one up, use a stock one, something. Okay, good to go. So we got one axle done, and this is the second one. So just after that first axle, I mean, you can see all the leftover hardware we have here. Some of it is for the link ends, but there's going to be quite a bit left over. I'm surprised that with the silver axle, they give you a silver plate but black tabs on the mount. This rig's going to have one silver axle and one black axle, so I just got to figure out which one I want on the front. So before I put everything together, I'll just check the grease. This screwdriver is a lifesaver when it comes to these little bolts and stuff. It has a magnetic tip. The magnetic tip, though, is pretty much a joke. It's like the weakest magnet ever, but it does work, and it does have pretty good battery life. Like, you could put together a couple rigs before needing to charge it at least. Apologies if there's printer noise in the background. I got a day-and-a-half long print going. I'm actually going to print a body that I'm hoping to put on this, because I actually don't have a body for this vehicle. So it seems like you get a random amount of spare parts. Like with the first axle, I got one leftover steering link end, and with the second one, I got two. Man, those are beautiful axles, though. I mean, okay, so we can mount our servo mounts, and these just kind of go up here. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. There's the black one. They're such nice axles. I think I'm gonna do silver on the front. For this build, I'll be using two Emax ESO8MA2 servos. You got 4 front links. The two outer links mount to your servo mount tray. This servo mount relies on the outside, it has kind of large holes, and it relies on the screw head to hold one side in, and then the inner tab is threaded. And the inner links, the ones that are attached to the inner part of your motor mount, those attach to the axle shaft, or the axle housing down here. So I'll put those in. One thing I would recommend is get some long bits, because these axles, you kind of got to get around stuff a lot of the time. Okay, so the front axle is on, so that's kind of how it looks. Pretty sweet. Okay, let's do the rear one. Alright, both axles are on. The next thing we could do is shocks. So I got to figure out what length shocks I want on this thing. I am going to use longer shocks for more articulation. 51mm double barrel shocks without the reservoirs. I don't really like the reservoirs because they kind of get in the way, in my opinion. Which is the right opinion. Oh, I almost forgot a piece to put in the steering link. We are racking up the spare parts here, so I got a ton of spare screws now over there. When you get shocks, you can get oil filled, or you can get these double barrel. These are double barrel shocks. I like these because they compress shorter than an oil filled shock, and they extend quite a ways. So I prefer these. If I want a scale rig, then I'll go with oil filled. If you have these on your truck, it'll be really bouncy. It'll be bouncing around a lot. I do like these though, just because you can get a lot of articulation with them. And in Jora, they're really good about sending you extra hardware. So when you buy a set of shocks, if I can get these screws out of here. When you buy a set of shocks, usually they'll give you 3 sets of springs. I only have 5 springs. That's what I was saying. Usually you get 3 sets of springs. In this case, I got 5 extra ones. Let's see. Oh, they look to be all the same approximate stiffness. The ones on it though seem like they're soft comparatively, so we're just going to leave the ones on it. That's interesting. Maybe it's something with the double barrels that they don't come with 2 full extra sets, or maybe it's just random. I'll bet maybe it's just random. Okay, so let's put these together. You can do 1 O-ring. It allows your shock to move from side to side a little bit further than it normally would. Further. I'm actually going to add them to both sides. We can always take them off, but it'll be a pain to add them on. if we need to. Okay, shocks are together. That's one thing on these aftermarket frames, this carbon fiber frame, it has so many shock mounting points right here. It's really nice because you can get some fine adjustments. We'll just use the existing hardware in the axles, and I'm going to use this driver because otherwise it's going to be hard to get around that knuckle. You see it's like already rubbing up against it. Maybe the next video I'll try to position the camera in front of me. I notice a lot of people do that. I think they're recording from their phones though. And I'm recording from an action cam, which probably not the best way to do it. Nice. Okay, so 10 millimeter. We need 10 millimeter for the top then. With these shocks, they actually come with 2 different spacers, and it came with a bunch of them. I'll probably use the thicker ones on top. Sometimes it is a challenge. Definitely do not need a lot of torque. Okay, rear shocks. So we have the rear and the front. So this is the front, this is the rear. Let's get a couple nuts. Okay, so we are making progress. We got both shocks, the suspension links, both axles, the suspension links. We have the shocks on. If you're building a regular vehicle, not a four-wheel steering vehicle, and you put that rear axle on, those upper links aren't going to go into this servo mount. They're going to go into a rear truss. So I forgot about that. That's one of those parts that a lot of people forget is the rear truss. In my case, the rear links are attached to this servo mount, but if you're building a rig that's not four-wheel steering, you're going to need a rear truss. So, and all that is it just bolts to the same spot as this servo mount, except to the rear axle, and they're just attached there. So the next thing I think that I want to do, let's actually do the servos. Let's mount the servos and get those out of the way. For this build, we are going to be using 2 ESO8MA2 servos, and these are about, I would say, twice as powerful as a stock servo. The stall torque on this is 1.6 or 2 kgcm, which is essentially like, you could think of it as like the power rating, or the twist rating. Torque is measured at 1.6 or 2 kgcm. Compared to a stock servo would be putting out like 0.9 kgcm. So 0.9 versus 1.6 or 2. So it depends on how much power you're running to this. Either 4.8 or 6 volts is what it can handle, and that will be your torque. In ounce inches, that would be like 31 ounce inches. It's close. I'm not saying it's exact. A stock servo would be 12.5 ounce inches versus 31. So that's how much more powerful this is. These servos come with like a bunch of tips. It depends on what you're using it for. The one we're going to be using is the single one. If you happen to, like, if this is too long and you ground off the end, or you broke it, or you lost it, or whatever, you can use this in place of it. So you could actually use this as a backup servo horn if you lose the one it comes with. And you can just clip off the other one. We're going to use the one it comes with. Hopefully we don't lose that. These servos are really good. They're super popular. It comes with this gigantic wire. I have like these long Q-tips. One of these. Okay, so I usually have wrap it around one of these. These are just some Q-tips I got for like cleaning rifles and stuff. To soak up a lot of this length, you just wrap it around this, hold a little bit of heat to it, and it'll coil your wire so you don't got so much to deal with. This way you can still have that longer cord, but it is a lot more manageable. Still got to kind of figure out what to do with some of it, but for this build I'm going to start out with just coiling it, and then if I get something that I really like that I know I won't take apart for a long time. I'll probably cut it and solder it and do some really nice wire management, or at least try to. I'm always trying to do nice wire management. Nothing like clean wire management. When you get it wrapped around here, I just hold it here, and then I take a lighter so after you hold the heat to it, you can just slide that off, and you're left with kind of a nice, like, short coil that is a lot easier to manage than that long one. That's what we'll do with these starting out. The wires are nicely wound, and we can get these in. They're identical, so it really doesn't matter which one I put on which side. Something I do want to try to do with this build is use limiting straps. So these are limiting straps, and what it does, so when you're climbing a hill, the body starts lifting away, it starts moving away from the axles, and that weight shifts your center of gravity, and then it ends up flipping you over backwards. So a limiting strap is essentially a hook. You mount it to the center of your servo. Well, the servo's not on here now, but that hook will sit on the servo. It'll be mounted to it, and then it runs like rubber bands. You can also use rubber bands. You run the strap up here to the tops of the shock towers, and it compresses the front down against the axle. So when you're going up a hill, it keeps the front closer to that axle, and if you do it correctly, it doesn't affect your articulation very much. You know, you just kind of pull the front end down, but you pull it down in such a way that your axle can still move side to side, and that's why you don't run two just straight down like this, because then your axle's not going to be able to move down and flex. So we'll get to that. Just gotta see if this is gonna line up like I think it will. Yep, okay, perfect. Let's put on the servos and get these going. This is going to work out really nicely for me because the servo is going to sit on this rear mount, and my frame can actually compress all the way without that servo interfering. So like if I had a back bumper on here, this would probably get stopped like right there instead of being able to fully compress. So this is going to work out nicely. We'll see where my battery ends up going. Oh, my O-ring slipped out. Okay, so this is how the back looks. I just run the O-rings through where the shock's attached to the frame, so you can see kind of how much closer it is versus if I were to just fully. So that's kind of how those attach, just around these the shock mounting points. Okay, so this is how I'm going to run the front straps for now. It allows a little bit of compression, articulation, and it keeps the front a little bit closer to that axle versus, you know, fully extended, which is way down here. So we're going to need a transmission. This is the next piece we need. I just use Axial's just stock transmission that they sell. It's all plastic, plastic gears, and this is what your motor attaches to. So this is what is actually going to be attached to the plate, the first plate that we put on this. That's what this is going to attach to. In order to get this guy up and running, I need to figure out what motor I'm going to use. So I was going to use this. I've never actually tried an Endura brushless system. I don't have any of the connectors that I need to hook it up to one of my batteries. I had to order some ends. When those arrive, which won't be today, I'll just solder some connections so I can use this in the future. And it's only $60 compared to, like, you know, over $100 for this. Anyway, we're gonna put in this Puretech 2-in-1 Unity, what is it? Unity 24 Pro 3500 kV 2-in-1 micro FOC brushless system for SCX24. So that's what we're gonna use. The system I'm not really going to go too in depth into this, but this is the motor slash ESC, and that's why it's a little bit longer. And then it comes with an adapter plate, so I have to actually put this on to this transmission so that this adapter plate will fit on this transmission. You have to take off the cover and then take out this gear. And so I always mark up on the gear so I don't put it in backwards, because I do believe that it matters. This is actually all we're going to use along with this gear. So from the stock transmission, this is what we're using. Something that I always have to do to these adapter plates is remount this hole a little bit, because it's always too small. Well, it's not too small, it's just like set off to where the nut for the gear will rub on the side. So to prevent that, I always make it a little bit bigger. This is kind of the correct orientation, it just slips on there. So this gear now goes on this shaft. Make sure it's not binding on anything. So it spins very nicely. Okay, now that we have our adapter plate on the little transmission part, we can put our motor on. Oh, you know what? I forgot I changed out the pinion on this. I actually have to change that back. In order to do that, we need a pinion puller, kind of what this does. Okay, so now we got to push this pinion gear back onto the motor. The motor is mounted. I believe we have a pretty good mesh between the pinion gear and the spur gear. They say, I guess, the width of a piece of paper. In this case, I actually think a piece of paper would be too thick. Anyway, our motor's together. We can drop it right in here. Our motor could actually be mounted facing this way, which is rear facing, or we could mount it facing forward like this. The problem with that is we would just have to move this tray. You know what? So the problem with mounting it forward is if this compresses all the way, it actually comes in contact with the motor because the can is too long. Otherwise, that would probably be the best direction because it puts all the weight of this motor in the front. So we're probably going to mount it rear facing, and it's coming in contact with this tray back here, so I'll have to slide that tray back a little bit. I just slid that tray all the way back. It looks good. Let's mount it. My screwdriver just died. Now we have a rear facing motor. We just have to find a place for this and a battery, and we're good to go. It doesn't look like we'll have much area for a battery. I think maybe what I'll end up doing is I might 3D print a tray for it. I could mount the receiver in the back and then have a tray for this for a battery up front, and that might work. Could do that. I essentially like to hook everything up right now just to center the servos. The wiring that comes off the Unity, it has this yellow and black wire. This is going to go to, on this SR315, it goes to the throttle channel. We are going to put in our front axle to the steering channel. Okay, then our rear steering is going to hook up to our auxiliary channel. So this is a 3-channel receiver. If you're doing 4-wheel steering, you're going to need a 3-channel. Starting out, I thought that I could just do like a Y splitter from each axle and just plug it into the same channel. You can't do that because your tire, you'll only be able to strafe. When you turn your tires one way, the back tires will also turn that way. They're not reversed like some people might think. Okay, so we have all 3 channels hooked up. Rear steer into the auxiliary, the front steering into the steering channel. It's actually marked STR, and then the motor yellow and black cord goes into the throttle channel, the THR channel. So we just need to plug in a battery, and coming out of this unity you have three separate things. One was for that throttle channel, one is your on-off switch, and then the other one goes to your battery. So this one we plug right into the battery, and then we'll turn on our controller, which I have a new model set up here. And we'll turn this on. Okay, so this is the first time I'm turning this on, so I need to bind it. So I'm using a DX6 rugged, but it's just missing some like obvious stuff that just makes it really weird. Like the interface, like it has this like touch panel down here. It's just not intuitive to me. In my opinion, it's not really intuitive. And they don't have an auto off. Like they have all these cool features, so you can use the same transmitter for like a bunch of different models, but they can't put in, you know, auto turn off after 5 minutes of inactivity. Instead, it'll just beep at you until your batteries go dead. That's just like a really weird thing, especially for something that costs over $200 that like wouldn't be included. Okay, so it looks like we are in business. I'm going to need to reverse my throttle, and I have to reverse my steering. Turning that on, everything should have been centered for these servos. So now I'm just going to mount the horns. The horn is on, you can just swivel it around. It should be very close to lining up, because remember your rig's on if you're following along with this. It's like hold the horn still and then cinch it down. Oh yeah. Very nice. So we can do the rear now. You know what? I put a different tip on that. Interestingly, I just noticed that each one of these axles came with different shaped ends. Basically, both sides kind of slant into this tip. And that's the only type of tips that I got with the silver axle. But there is this type of tip, and these are the only type of tips I got with the black axle, and only this side is slanted in, and this side is just kind of like goes straight out. That's interesting. I guess it doesn't matter, but that is interesting that one set is completely different than the other set. I have this axle on two other kits. On this buggy, these ones it looks like are the one with just the tips with just one slanted side. This one, it looks to be the same. Or I'm just gonna kind of go with it. Let's just put this in and see how it lines up. I mean, that looks like it'll line up. Mias, what are you doing to me? Now that we have everything kind of centered, I'll unplug everything. We could do our drive shafts, so let's get those on. Okay, so the drive shaft, let's put that on. Okay, drive shafts are on. I really like those drive shafts. It kind of looks like a mess right now, but we're very close to getting this up and running. This is where I gotta figure out what to do with this because of this can size. It doesn't leave me a lot of room on the back end where the battery would normally go. So the battery would normally go here. If we had mounted this front facing, it would be plenty of room to mount this battery and probably the ESC too. So because we rear mounted it, I'm gonna put the battery crosswise up here. I usually like to print a mount or something. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is I'm going to print a tray, and this battery will just lay on that tray up here right up against these posts, which will give me some more weight in the front, and then the tray will just clamp down on either side of the rails. So I got to take some measurements. Alright, it just finished printing, so this is what I'm going to use is my battery tray. So this fits right onto the frame like this, and then it should clip down over it like so. The battery will lay on it just like this. So I'll have to cut that to length, but so that is where it'll strap the battery. That'll bring the weight forward a little bit. Should fit perfectly. So it's in there. So that's going to be a good starting spot for the battery. I don't know if I'll keep it there for now. This works, and it works pretty good, I think. But the battery, I mean, it's right up here next to the shock mount, so it's as far forward as I can pretty much get it. I can still get full compression on the shocks. They can still bottom out, so there's nothing preventing me from keeping this as close to the axle as possible. We need to figure out where to put our receiver. This is an SR315 3-channel receiver. So this is a good receiver because it understands 2 protocols. And this actually comes with a much longer antenna. I clip my antennas though. And I don't have any issues with them. I don't run these at like a super long range or anything, so I've never experienced signal loss at the range that I do run these. I'll actually probably have to do a range test with one I cut and one I don't. See, I actually mark these on the bottom. It just says cut. So if anything does go wrong, I know who to blame. You can't just clip it. There's like 4 layers to this. There's this outer shielding. There's a metal casing. It's like a braided casing. And then there's this inner plastic thing with the wire inside of it, the antenna inside of it. So when I clip them, I trim around just like stripping a wire and strip this case off, and it leaves that metal sheath on the outside. And then I go around with like an X-Acto knife, and I slowly clip all of the metal braided pieces until I can just slide that off. It's really important to leave a particular amount exposed at the end. So if you just cut it and you leave the shielding on, you'll probably get quite a bit of interference. That's what I do. So this is clipped. I just leave 30 or 31 millimeters at the end. I left 31 millimeters exposed. Yeah. I think I'm just going to put this right back here, just right on the center of this tray in the back. Let me just mount this, and Gorilla tape is a lifesaver for this hobby. It is invaluable. Oh, you know what? I think I think this came with some side rails. I should actually put those on. We have the side rails on. That's good enough for a test run. So now we have to actually mount the wheels and tires. I'm going to use these. These are what I used on the Bronco. Well, I have to take these off. I'm going to put them on my brother's rig. Dang, those look really good. Especially, so this is his Scout body that I'm currently piecing together, and I think that this set of tires looks really scale. I'm going to save these for him. The tires that we are going to use instead are these LGRP Swamp Kings, and these are probably my favorite tires. The other tires just look too good with those wheels, and so I needed to give those to my brother for his Scout. But that leaves me with kind of a problem. I have tires, but these are the only wheels that I have, so I'm going to have to pick up some better wheels. These are not good quality wheels. Okay, there it is. All done except for a body and some way to mount the body. I'll have to set up the four-wheel steering because I've actually never done that before. And we'll get this on the course and see what it can do. Obviously it doesn't have a body or anything. I am printing one, but yeah, I'll get this going and then we'll see how it does. Okay, we are in business. So I set up four-wheel steering on this, so I just set it to toggle so it has just regular, or we can turn on the strafing. We could also turn it to proportional, and this is kind of what I was after. And then we can just do the rear. Should have a lot of maneuverability with this. Let's get it on the course. I just got to set my endpoints. So I realized that I didn't tighten my servos down, so I actually got to do that real quick. Okay, four-wheel steering. Let's see what this can do. So this is kind of one-handed, so bear with me. Look at that turning radius. That is nuts. Okay, so then if we... Oh, whoops, wrong button. Okay, strafing. Oh, hold on. Alright, I gotta put this on a tripod so I can do this. Look at that. It's smoking. Oh, that servo's just blown up. Oh, man. I guess it was too grippy. That is melting. I wonder how the first one is. Oh, that's crazy. Oh, that servo just fried hardcore. I was wondering. Oh man. That is melted. Nuts. Well, I'm gonna go switch the servos and I'll be right back. So I'm switching out the servo. Look at the back of this one. Look at the back of that servo. That's crazy. It just melted a hole right through it. And I only had 6 volts going to it. So, not sure why that happened. Maybe I was just kind of wrenching on it. And I know it was getting hung up there. It was kind of acting funny. So, I'm going to switch it out and we'll see if it happens with another one. I'm switching it out with the exact same servo right here. So, we'll see if... we have better luck with a second one. I'll set the endpoints and then we'll see how we do. Okay, it does work. So it should be centered. Rear steer. Front steer. Okay, I'm back and switched out the servo. Okay, no big deal. Alright, so turning radius, I guess I'll just use the edge of this carpet. Very scientific. And I'll just use this black line. And I'll just turn hard to the passenger side. And to line up again. Yeah, that's, so that's stock. Huh. Well, let's check out the turning radius on that. Yeah. That is so cool. Okay, let's feel that servo. Seems fine. Okay, switch to, rear wheel steering. That's rear only. Strafe. So cool. That is just nuts how sharp that turns. I keep feeling it just to see if there's any heat, but I mean it's like barely lukewarm. Well, now that our servo isn't exploding, I think we should take it through the course. I'll weigh it and let's do an RTI ramp. Okay, now that we have it running without exploding, we can do an RTI ramp. We'll see what we get. I think we're running out of room. Yeah, the back tire's on it. Maybe I should have done a 30-degree ramp. I wasn't expecting that much articulation. There, that's planted. Let me get this caliper. It looks like, I would call that 74. I would say 74 on the RTI ramp. So we'll say 74, and I gotta print a new ramp. For these modified vehicles, I guess, we're gonna have to do a different RTI index. So I'll print one at 30 or maybe even 35 degrees. This one's 25 degrees. I thought that would have been enough, and it's not. Alright, so let's weigh this. We'll reset it. Okay. Okay, pretty much centered. We got 533.3 grams. We got 51% weight in the front and 49 in the rear. Four-wheel steering with that servo on the back, plus the motor is rear facing, so that gave us quite a bit of weight in the back. I'm not sure how I want to rectify that. I'll keep working on this. I want to put a body on it. I don't know exactly what body that's going to be. I do want to add some weight to the front. I really like having four-wheel steering. Not really sure what was going on with that first servo. It just blew. Let's get this on the course and see what it does. With the weight bias of 50-50, I'm not really sure how it's going to perform. No problem. Such sharp turning. I think that looks pretty good. Pretty good tester body. I think I could do some weathering. Maybe cover the back end. see if we can turn around that. Oh. Oh my gosh. No problem. Tell me it can turn around in there. Oh, it turned all the way around. The maneuverability is unbelievable. Just made a U-turn in there. I wonder if I'm gonna blow another servo. That is crazy. The maneuverability on that is amazing. I just can't get over that. That is awesome. I don't know. I kind of like that body. I think it's riding a little bit too high. But damn, I really like that. So this is my first fully proportional four-wheel steering vehicle. I don't think it turned out too bad at all. The maneuverability is unmatched. That is crazy. I put some fake snow over here. It's like getting caught in the tires. I mean, and this has some wheel speed. That is so awesome. It just looks so good just driving around. Ooh. Oh. Oh, can I turn on strafing? Hold on. Where's that? Look at that. That is crazy. Oh, okay, let's turn it back to proportional. Let's see if we can drive down this. Kind of down here and around there. That corner over there. This is tough for just a regular, front wheel steering rig. Oh, tires got caught right there. So what I'm noticing is for this grippy terrain, I mean, it's really grippy. It's a little bit too much for those Emax servos. So I might think about, I mean, that's going to be an expensive upgrade, but I'm just wondering, what if I just put 2 Reefs 99 micros in there? Man, that just looks so cool to me. I think I'm going to keep that body. I might see about the ride height, but I mean, this is pretty capable. This is like, I would not mind just kind of having this. Oh, I wouldn't mind having this and just not upgrading it. I mean, it's like, it's capable enough, in my opinion. It's like a little worm. I mean, it looks way cooler than a worm. So I'll work on, so the next thing I want to do, I guess, is I'll think about the servos. Because I mean, it would be unstoppable if I upgraded those servos. But I am concerned about them since we already, melted one, just completely destroyed it. But the next thing I want to do is wire management for sure. I mean, that's a rat's nest. So I'll work on that. I'll work on a better body mounting system. And probably servos. So those three things, I think I'll probably work on getting a video out after I do all of those, just kind of showing the process. Oh man, that just like walks up that, no problem. But yeah, that Unity motor is pretty cool. Kind of bummed that I rear mounted it, but I mean, it doesn't seem to bother this rig at all. It's very capable, just like it is. It has speed, it can low crawl. I mean, it's super maneuverable. I mean, it's nuts. I just kind of like watching this just kind of crawl around slowly. I do want to get different wheels. Those were just the only ones I had because I gave the other ones to my brother, or they're going on his rig. That's probably all I'm going to do. I'll cut it right here. So I'll just work on wire management, better body mounting system, possibly the servos, and new wheels.